Hello, my name is Opal Singleton. I am the president and CEO of Million Kids. Please follow us on all of our social media. This is a very quick insider alert. This is analysis of a case that took place, in this case, up in Bakersfield, and it involved the rescue of about 16 people that were coming into the United States from Mexico and being held by coyotes and cartel in a drop house. And so I want to just quickly educate you on how this looks so that you're familiar with it and you can find others if they're there. I would encourage you to please join Million Kids on Facebook at the Million Kids Supporters Group. That is a closed group that we will admit you to that we use for training, just to give you a heads up on this. So this case happened last week up in Bakersfield. The investigation began because literally 16 people were being held captive. It started when they had a man that had escaped from a home where he claims to be held captive. And the footage shows him going from door to door, knocking on the door, pleading for help. As the sheriff detectives arrived and they contacted the man, he had escaped from the house, and he told officials that he had been held captive in that particular home. He said he was also being held with 15 other victims, including his wife and a minor child, and they're being held at this same place. According to a statement from KSCO, the deputies identified that residence in the 700 block of Salsa Street in Bakersfield. What happened here is the people had been living on the property and they had only been there a couple of months, the people that resided in the house. So the rest of the neighborhood didn't know who they were. They kind of kept to themselves, and they said there was always a lot of vehicles outside of that home. Well, they went in and they arrested 5 people, and these people are ranging in age from 16 all the way up to 37 years old. I point that out because oftentimes minors can be involved in this kind of activity. As they executed the search warrant and started to look at that building, what they learned is that the victims had been pulled out of that house and taken to 2 other drop houses not too far away from this particular house. I want to point that out because that tells you that this is a cartel-driven operation, a coyote-driven operation, and that they have more than one facility right there in Bakersfield. So as they went into the other facilities and they rescued the people, they said that they had been transported by boat from Ensenada to the San Diego area, and then they were transported by cars up to the Bakersfield area. So there's an important takeaway here I want to just share with you. First of all, people that are being held when they come into the country, they're often held by coyotes or people that are part of cartels that are right here in our facility, and they are not safe. Many times those people, there are a lot of people in a small area. They may have one. I just read of a case of a woman and her 2 children that were being held with 56 men. This was in Phoenix. And that you're just not safe as a woman and small children being held with 56 people. So they're often violated. If they can't come up, usually what happens is they will be brought to the border by a cartel, and then they will be taken out to houses in various parts of the nation, and they demand more money. And this is the reason why the number one thing you will hear from a foreign national victim of trafficking is, I have to cooperate or they're going to hurt my family back home. Quite frankly, in these drop houses, they can be very violent, and they will often harm or physically violate an individual to tell all the other people they're holding that they better come up with the money or that can happen to them. Number one thing I want you to see is that men can be violated too. Men can be victims of trafficking. You don't normally think of that, but if you've entered the country and you haven't been able to pay the money that you need to pay, you can become a victim of trafficking. Often women and children are kept in the drop house with many men and absolutely no protection and in horrendous conditions. Just because an individual has been able to cross the border and enter the U.S. does not mean that they're going to be safe right here on our soil. So what do you look for? They're often on a freeway and they're in a neighborhood of similar ethnicity. For instance, if they're bringing them in from Mexico or Guatemala or Nicaragua, it may be in an Hispanic neighborhood. Or if they're bringing it in from China or Taiwan or Thailand, it may be in a Chinese neighborhood. They often have attached garages. That's because vans come early morning and late night to drop people off. They may be new to the neighborhood. These are often rental houses. They may have a lot of vehicles around the house, as in this particular case. They may have someone sitting out front, reading a magazine, having a smoke. That is the guard person that's keeping an eye out on who's coming up. They may have a guard dog, which is why we often train animal control in our county. There may be locks on the outside of the house and on the outside of the windows and the doors, as opposed on the inside. And the occupants usually keep to themselves. If you suspect that you're observing or have a drop house in your community, do not intervene with the occupants, okay? Report it immediately. So don't get involved. If you think people are being held or maybe it's an illegal pot grow in there, do not intervene or alert the occupants, but do report it. If it's an emergency, as this one was, where someone was coming out asking for help, call 911 immediately. But if it is not, you just have suspicions, you have information, you have an address, you have something that you can report anonymously. And you can do that at 1-888-3737-888. I'm going to say that one more time, 1-888-3737-888. And that is the national hotline. Well, my name is Opal Singleton. This is brought to you by MillionKids.org. I appreciate each and every one of you that support our work. And this is our effort to keep you educated and up to date. So be sure and go to MillionKids.org, sign up for our newsletter, sign up for the insider alerts. And if you're on Facebook, join up with Million Kids supporters. It is a private training group on FaceTime. Thank you, and I'll see you next time on Million Kids Insider Alert.